module for everything, but there is a big disappointment where they realize that there is no module for image gallery, right? There is no module for specific things, but you have to use views and color box and JBrowser or use slideshows, and then you can put together a proper image gallery. So that's totally different from what I see in Joomla, for example, or WordPress, where modules are actually a unit that you can install and use. With Drupal, you have to install your module or your bunch of modules and configure them to have some feature. And they all realize that Drupal has a long and steep learning curve, which is true. But on the other hand, I am in Drupal, let's say, for about 5 years. Previously, I wasn't a PHP developer. I wasn't doing developing in any other language. A little bit of Flash, but that wasn't really hardcore. So I was basically a web designer, and I now feel that I can be on this. Text is missing, but I'm just beyond the forum API and performance tuning and so on. So I can do custom development, I can do custom things, just in 5 years without being a developer at all at the beginning. So I don't think that 5 years it's such a long time that I would have to say that it was just long learning curve. Okay, I did separate these mistakes by the phase of your project. So the first phase of the project is planning. So how do you design it, how do you structure it, everything. And let's go first to the part where you would... Seriously? Okay. There's a picture there. So Drupal has some very common elements that you will see on every page, and if you don't use those elements, you're not really using Drupal. So for example, you have a page title, you have tabs. You definitely know about tabs because when you log in, the first thing you go /user, you have login, register, and reset your password. And you kind of have to have your designer design those tabs. If they don't do that, they will look like default tabs, and they won't look very nice on your design. In even more cases, I saw actually 100% of the cases, developers just go and remove the variable that outputs the tabs, which is horrible because you don't have tabs anymore. So you don't have edit button, you don't have register button. You actually lose a lot of potentially good features. And then you have messages. A lot of developers, delete messages, and then they asking themselves why, when you commit a forum on a web forum, you don't get any feedback. Of course you don't get, because you just remove your messages bar, and so on. As for example, very good case is that when you have a blog, you have a title and a content. So you kind of have to respect that. You don't have to be limited, but you have to know about it. This is one case where I really hate. Where I see that it's actually very hard to team and design Drupal forums, because you don't really write your own markup for your forms. You just get what Drupal outputs, and that means that you're kind of limited on the positioning of your fields and so on. So in this case, you kind of have to learn about hook form alter. With hook form alter, you can wrap some fields into some wrappers and move around those fields and so on. There are also two projects, Uniform and Field Group. Field Group is just for the grouping the fields on your node form and so on. And Uniform just makes your forms, your fields easy to style with CSS. So I'm not saying that you should not design your forms like, you know, that they will look pretty, but you have to have in your mind that your front-end developer will have a really hard time to achieve what you want, and we usually do because we are very limited in that. And then, of course, we have this architecture decisions where, for example, you have to think about, you know, if you have, for example, article and a public release. So is this one content type, or is this two content types? Do you have to separate them by content types or separate them by category? You know, this goes case to case, but if you see that some of the fields are actually related, or that you use same fields for, you know, public release and articles, maybe it would be better for the future if you just create a new content type called news, and you would put everything there, and you would separate those two by category, taxonomy, and so on. So these are really hard to say, you know, what the formula is, but you kind of learn this by working on more and more projects. So here you just have to really sit down and maybe see some other cases, some other websites, and so on. Ask colleague something. Next, when we are done with our, you know, design and architecture, we are going to build our site. And first thing that I noticed, I mean, this is really a classic one. So a new developer sees, you know, /modules, and he puts all the modules in there. That's really so common, and everyone does that. I mean, even I did that for my first project, which makes sense, right? You put modules and you put modules there. But best thing would do, I mean, the proper thing to do is that you put your modules and your themes into sites /default or all /themes and so on. This means that you separated core from your code, so from your installation. And you can go even further. For example, you can have /sites /all /modules /custom /contrib. So you can really place those things together. If you don't do this and you put your modules into /modules, you will have a really hard time updating your code, and it's going to be a mess in the future. So there is also a link about this explaining how to do this, which you don't really see here. And then when you do choose modules, a lot of times it just happens that, you know, you find a module, okay, it suits you. Don't really read the notes and everything. But for example, here in this case, the reference module, it says, you know, guys, don't use this module because we have a better module, and all the new sites that you're building should be built with entity reference, not references, but entity reference. I mean, for me, that's kind of clear, but for someone who just Googles, you know, referencing node, and he comes to this page, we'll just go and click download. And in next 2 years, the support for this module will be like totally none, and you know, views are I mean, it won't be working for views anymore like it should, and so on. So really read the notes and see how many open issues a module has, and so on. So this gives you an overview if this is a good module to use and if it's stable, and so on. A lot of times I just see, you know, these are folders with modules. Okay. So a lot of times you can just see that there is a lot of modules in the folder, and they're not really in use. So this means that you have a bunch of modules there that are just standing there doing nothing. And if you go back, I don't know, after 2 years, you kind of get confused. I mean, should I delete this? Or maybe I'm using this or not? I don't know. So delete the folders, everything that you don't need. as soon as possible. This is also for the site building. So Drupal comes with default block system. You know, this is the page where you can arrange your blocks into regions, and that kind of sucks because it's so. If you get a complicated system or a complicated project, it will give you overhead because it has unlimited possibilities of where they want to display some block or where they don't want to display some block. So in this case, I recommend using context or panels. They are totally different stories, but you know, you can Google what are the use cases to use context or what are the use cases to use panels. A lot of times I use both at the same time. But I don't use the default block system anymore because it doesn't work for advanced projects. Okay. 8. Putting code and content in the blocks. That's also a horrible idea, especially if you put PHP in there. Better to do is just to write your own PHP. So you write your own custom module with a block hook, and you have your own block there. It's the proper way to do it. Also, putting content in a block with the default block system is not okay because you don't have revisions. You cannot set permissions, and a bunch of stuff that you would get, for example, from using bin or if you're using node block or boxes. Boxes are okay because you can actually have unique machine name and so on. So try those modules. For example, in the bin case, you can have different types of blocks, and you can attach fields to blocks, which is great. So you can have a block type banner with only image field, and you can have block type text with only text field. And you can set permissions for both of them differently. Theming. So when you're done with building, usually comes theming. So you have to write down your CSS, make your theme, and so on. Here I saw in 3 cases when someone was just taking some theme either from the core or downloaded it and then just go and edit CSS or add new style sheets. This is again trouble when you want to upgrade or update the theme. You can do this because it will actually overwrite your own code before. So better to use sub-theme system, so you can have any kind of theme for your base theme, and it will actually get all the style sheets, all the functions, everything from the base theme, and you can just put there one CSS file, and it will override everything, but you won't still touch the actual original theme. So check this link, and I will put the slides. This is a common one. So you have, for example, pages like home, about us, and contact. I think I can then see the structure of the templates with page minus home, page minus about us, page minus contact, and what they do is that they just change some sidebar or something like that. And this is not a good idea because it actually duplicated or triplicated the code, and which means that you would have hard time maintaining it. Better to use, I don't know, if you really have complex layouts, better to use panels. With panels you can actually arrange those blocks with the user interface. But most of the cases you can do it without doing that. But you have to write down your original page template so efficiently that it would get so for example, if the page doesn't have a sidebar, the main content should stretch to the whole view. Writing logic in templates. So I saw SQL queries, calculations, function calls that shouldn't be there, in a node template and so on. And I know it happens. It's fast. It's fast. But you should just use template.php where you can set your preprocess folder, and then you just put a variable to the actual template. There is also a link about how to write preprocess functions. Preprocess functions prepare a function, so you can prepare a function and just make it available in your template file. And your template file is clean and without any PHP. This one is more a CSS issue. So, for example, I saw CSS styling like item list something, but the problem is that the front-end developer didn't realize that item list is basically every item list on your Drupal website. So this means that he styled hundreds of possibly options. So better to use IDs which are always unique, and just try to understand how Drupal builds up your page. So where are blogs, where are those regions, and try to be specific as possible. I saw like hard-coded links with absolute pair or relative pair or anything, but we have available functions like L or RL, so where you can just put your Drupal pair, and this function will create a pair that will work on every on your local host, on your server, everywhere. Also theme functions. These are maybe more advanced for a beginner to understand, but once you get them, once you know how to find them, it's okay. But they actually create the code as normally Drupal would. The coding part of the project. So, first mistake of a beginner can do when developing his first Drupal project is to code. So just try not to code at all. I mean, I know it sounds weird that if you're a developer and I say to you, don't code, try not to code, but there is a big possibility that you will find something for example, we had before the feeds API or something like that. So this is something that normally you would go and code your parser or anything, but we have a solution for that. We have a solution for listing, I don't know, anything, users, content, whatever. We have views for that. We have rules, which will also be explained today, as I know. So rules are like, rules are like programming with, clicking a mouse around, and it's awesome. So try not to code, find a solution without that. It's not always possible, but it can be done. Of course, hacking core and content modules, that's kind of obvious, so don't touch anything that you downloaded. So you don't touch Drupal core, don't touch any content module. In some cases, you would have to apply a patch, but you have to mark it down in your documentation, whatever, that you patched something because it was a known bug, and probably in the next release of the module, this bug will be fixed and your patch will be already inside, so that's okay. But try not to do this. You can, in most cases, you can use hooks and you can alter whatever that module did, so you can alter it. So, for example, views are a very complex system, but you can hook into view and you can change everything. You can change query without going inside there and then change the views module. Again, using API functions for queries. So, for example, we have very good APIs for querying the database, or maybe querying even the entity, so nodes and taxonomy and users. So you should use this because it's safe, it's fast to, and when you learn how to write those function calls, it's faster than writing your own queries. Maybe in this case, it's just best to get this module called examples, this module doesn't do anything, but it has a bunch of modules or implementations of examples how to do some things. And you can just go to that code and see how some things should be done, and you will get a very good picture of how to code using API functions and so on. Maybe here I forgot to mention there is an API.Drupal.org website where you can search for a function, and it's actually very good. I use it every day. I have it on my bookmarks, so it's kind of the next thing that after Google, I think. The very important part is that the beginners usually don't know how to debug your code. This is very basic stuff. So, for example, you have this module called devel. Devel gives you some functions, so you can print out your variables, so you can print out your render arrays, which is very helpful. You can print out your objects, your node objects, and so on. You can also print those logs into some other module, object log. And another very good case is, so for example, you want to override a template, but you don't even know what that template is. You can use Devel Themer, and Devel Themer gives you a very good user interface system where you can just click on an element and it will show you what kind of content, what kind of template file that is. So for this example, you can see there that I click on a page and it shows me the candidates, it shows me the cross functions. This is really great for the beginner before you get to understand how the system works. This one is also very important, you know, like having the code to look the same, to act the same, to have this unified approach to coding. I find this very useful, or let's say that I don't like when I see a different approach to coding, you know, like 8 characters of depth and so on. That's horrible. But this is not really urgent, but it can get very frustrating when another team member joins the project and he sees something different and so on. And then when we are done with our project, we code it, we design it, we team it and everything. We are now giving this project to our client, and the client says, you know, the administration, the backend sucks, I saw WordPress, it looks much better, it has this and this functions, but we kind of forget that we are the ones who are doing this platform, so we should prepare our backend so the users will be easy to use it. So I always do, after the project is done, I always do, for example, stuff like merging fields into some kind of field sets or stuff like that, so the user can easily find where to change some content, and, you know, giving them dashboards and shortcuts and so on. And the last thing is, you know, that you just forget about that you ever built a website. So you don't update it, you don't upgrade it, you don't do anything, you just forget about it, and then you have a website that has, you know, when you go to this update status report, it's all red. So that's not good. It's red, you know. It's not good. So this means that you try to have some kind of contract with your clients, that you are maintaining the website, and so you can actually go and update those websites to the new versions of Drupal core, to the new versions of contract modules, and so on. So you can make it safe. And what I found that if you don't do this, you know, I don't know, once a year maybe, it's actually maybe enough, you know, why not? But you're in this loop that you understand what's going on with this website. So, for example, if a client wants some upgrade, you're not struck with the fact that, you know, shit, my website is, you know, 20 versions behind, and now I have to really go and check everything if it's going to work out. It's easier to do this by steps. And that's my 20 mistakes that developers did on their projects with Drupal. How can you avoid this? I started with getting a mentor. I was not really reading books because I'm not a book person, but maybe it will help you, I know. And I failed a couple of times, so I learned from that. So if you have any questions.
There's one thing I would like to comment on. So there's one thing I would like to comment on. On one of the slides, you suggested that for theming, for front-end development, to use IDs and to be as specific as possible. I would actually suggest the opposite of that, because that is actually what the standard for front-end development is. You try to be as unspecific as possible while trying to be as specific enough for your development. Because you have to understand that once you use an ID, that ID, CSS is a whole mess of race conditions. So everything you write in your CSS style sheet has a weight, which it compares against other stylings in your style sheets. So an ID, for example, has a weight of 1,000, right? So you would need 1,000 classes in a chain in order to override an ID. So if you would write a subtheme based on that one theme that you created in the first place, you would have to write 1,000 classes in order to override the ID. The other choice would be to use important, which is 1,001 classes.
This would be mistake 21. Yeah.
So usually I would suggest to be as unspecific as possible.
Yeah, maybe I didn't express it with words, but yeah, of course you're right. But I mean, I was trying to say that the fact that people are targeting, item list or views, dot views, and they are kind of hoping that this is just for the front page views, and then they go to the archive page and they see that the styling is there, and then they override it. They don't know that views has a wrapper with an ID there. No.
Correct. So really, what I was just trying to say is that IDs should be the last resort for trying to apply styles to it. When you have really generic classes like view or item list, you should try to only apply really sensible defaults to that, which is of course true, yes. But really, if you write a theme, try to only use classes. IDs are what I usually only use in JavaScript, for example.
Thank you. Okay, we have time for one more question. Okay, no, thank you.